Sir Stephen Harold Spender was a well-known English poet, novelist, and essayist. Though born and educated in England, he spent a large part of his youth in Germany and later in Spain during the Civil War there. Spender's works hold up a mirror to the political and social atmosphere of the 1930s. He was a long-time supporter of communism, the influence of which is visible on his works. A common theme across his works is an awareness of the inequality in society. However, he later became disillusioned with communism and also wrote about it. Spender's early works, Poems of Dedication, Poems, and Vienna, show a deep involvement with social issues. The poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, draws a vivid picture of a school in a slum. A likely inspiration for this poem came from Spender's visit to a slum school in the East End of London. Through the poem, Spender wishes to draw the reader's attention to the class divide in society and the apathy towards the have-nots. He also urges the wealthy and those in power to take the necessary steps to improve the lives of the poor. Here is a summary of the poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum by Stephen Spender. The poet begins the poem by illustrating a handful of students sitting inside a classroom in a slum school. The children are far removed from the waves and the breeze and are deprived of sun and fresh air. They seem like rootless weeds, thin, weak, and unwanted, with their hair scattered around their pale and colorless faces. The poet describes a tall girl sitting with her head bowed down, as if she is a wilting flower. Not far from her, he notices a boy, frail and sickly, seemingly made from paper and with eyes like those of a rat's. Another boy in the class has twisted bones, a genetic disorder that he seems to have inherited along with the poverty. In contrast to these two, a sweet, quiet boy sits almost unnoticed at the back of the dim class. He appears to be daydreaming. The poet imagines that he might be yearning to play freely like a squirrel on a tree, far away from his current, boxed-in surroundings. The poet then describes the environment in the classroom. The walls, painted sour cream, are dingy and are decorated with donated things, a picture of Shakespeare, an image of the dawn over a city, a painting of a flower-decked mountain valley, and, most significantly, a map depicting the world. These things represent a world of beauty, learning, and joy that is far removed from the students' world. For them, the reality is the grey fog outside the windows, a life full of adversity. The reality includes narrow streets and grey skies, which are stifling and which offer no chance at betterment. Thus, their life is in stark contrast to the world described in their books. For the children, the words of their books are meaningless. Next, the poet speaks of Shakespeare and the map as being negative influences. They are wicked because the things the students see on the map or read in their books only function as temptation. The lives of the children are led in the dim and cramped reality of the slum. The children of the slum have a deprived existence. They are undernourished, with their bones showing through skin. Even the spectacles some children require are made of cracked glass with heavy steel frames. They are forced to meet their needs with substandard and broken things, perhaps those that are discarded by the rich. The poet laments the fact that the existence of these children revolves around foggy slums. He declares in anger that the classroom maps should be covered with slums because most of these children will experience nothing else in their lives. In the end, the poet pleads to the authorities, school governors or inspectors, or even visitors to help these children break out of their limited existence. The children should be allowed to escape the repressive environment of the slum and the narrow windows which have doomed them to a life of misery and deprivation. They should be able to live a life that all children have a right to, playing out in the open in the green fields under blue skies and the bright sun, and reading and learning. The last few lines are strongly expressive of the poet's wish for the children to live a fulfilling and natural life. The poet hopes that the children's future will be bright and that they will be able to successfully utilize the education that they get. Now let us examine the poem closely. The setting of the poem is, as the title suggests, an elementary school classroom in a slum. The slum is located in a grey and smoke-filled locality in a city. The setting very vividly brings out the situation of the poor and the downtrodden in the society. The overarching theme of the poem is the social inequality that is prevalent in societies across the world, evident even at the level of schools. The poet draws our attention to the extreme poverty in which the children spend their lives. This has been highlighted clearly in the line, "All their time and space are foggy slum." The children are malnourished and generally underprivileged, where even the spectacles they use have cracked glass. This is in stark contrast to the world depicted in their books and in the pictures on their classroom wall. That world is the world of the privileged in the society. It has all the comforts and opportunities needed to lead a fulfilling life. Even education, which is supposed to help the students break barriers, seems to be aligned to the needs of the elite. So, instead of being a positive influence, it will only drive them deeper into misery. Another theme in the poem is that of hope. In contrast to the somber, pessimistic mood in the first 3 stanzas, the last stanza is optimistic. The poet believes that the lives of the children can be improved if the children are empowered by the right kind of education to break free of their lives in the slum. The theme is further emphasized by the daydreaming child, who can be considered a symbol of the belief that the children can escape their difficult situation. The poem has an unusual syntax. Its use of incomplete sentences such as these underscores the broken lives of the slum children. The poem is highly symbolic, with various symbols being used to represent complex ideas. This symbolism leaves the poem open to several interpretations. The fog is used as a symbol of the colorless and dreary existence of the children. Similarly, the phrase "sour cream walls" stands for the boring, unhappy experience that school is for the slum children. The symbol of the map is used to represent imagined places that the children read about but have no access to. Thus, it highlights social inequality. Later in the poem, the map, along with Shakespeare, represent ineffective education. By calling them a bad example and wicked, respectively, the poet highlights an irony. Instead of positively inspiring the children, such education, which is of little relevance or use, leads them into temptations such as thievery. In the final stanza, the map is used in a more positive sense. It stands for the kind of education that can show the children a way of escape from their dreary existence. A variety of similes and metaphors are used by the poet to drive home his message. They also create a visual impact. For instance, the poet compares the uncertain future of the slum children with fog, in the metaphor, "all their futures painted with a fog." Another metaphor is in the phrase, "rat's eyes." Here, the boy is being compared to a rat to highlight his poverty. The poet also beautifully compares the map to a window in this line. In addition to indirect comparisons, the poet also uses direct comparisons or similes in these lines. Here are some other figures of speech used in the poem, each of which contribute to the richness of the poem.